You watch a news feed at the PM edition. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you've just joined us, it's a very good afternoon. Well, let's get some analysis on the Economic Freedom Fighters 2024 election manifesto launch with Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Professor Breakfast, it's always good to speak to you on news feed at PM. My first question really speaks to the issues around filling stadiums, not just by the EFF, who've filled the 90,000-seater FNB Stadium, but now there's the 56,000 Moses Mabhida Stadium. How important is this for both the political parties and the voters themselves, do you think?
Just to pick up where you left off, Hugo, with regard to your previous conversation, first of all, I think it's not clear to see which way the wind is blowing. Hence, contestation in KZN is extremely important because KZN has become a geopolitical battleground. No wonder at the moment it is under the spotlight. The issue of filling stadiums, it's a psychological matter in my view. It doesn't matter that much because filling up a stadium doesn't mean that come hell or high water, those people who attended your rally are going to vote on a large scale for you. It doesn't mean that. It's just a political statement that you've got numbers and so on. It's a psychological booster. But we cannot move from general to specific and say because of that, it means that no matter what, you are going to have a great deal of votes.
Professor, you have many potential voters, or voters, if you will, that are sitting on the fence, wondering which way to go, right? Now, you have the Patriotic Alliance a few months ago that attempted to fill up a stadium, which didn't work out very well. EFF filled the 90,000-seater FNB Stadium. They go ahead again and fill this stadium, the Moses Mabhida Stadium. What does that do to those individuals who are sitting on the fence, who are not really sure which way to go? Does this almost say, well, you're not alone in how you think and how you're likely to vote? You've got the EFF, for instance, that's filling these stadiums. Let's vote for the EFF and see how it goes.
First of all, Hugo, I fully concur with you that there are voters who are sitting on the fence. But at the same time, the point must be made that there are different categories of voters. For instance, there are voters that I call die-hard supporters. Those ones, they've made up their minds who they're going to vote for. And then you get the ones that you have referred to as sitting on the fence. I call them sympathizers. Then you get other ones who basically vote in relation to public policy issues. So yes, you can get, some voters who have not decided as yet based on the fact that you've been filling up stadiums. But that is a complex matter. It's not something that is straightforward, that come hell or high water, no matter what, because you've been filling up stadiums, it means that is going to translate into votes.
Now, you've talked about the psychology of filling up stadiums, right? Explain that to us. Who does this psychology impact and how?
Well, I mean, it's a political statement that you've got numbers in theory, but in practice that will be determined by the outcome, after the electoral outcomes have been unveiled. Because, I mean, I can attend a rally of the EFF. It doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for the EFF. I can attend a rally of the EFF for different reasons. Maybe you guys have invited me. Maybe I've been invited by a friend of mine. Whatever the case might be. So that's why I'm saying that we cannot assume that because people have pitched up at a rally on a large scale, it means that therefore, no matter what, those people who vote for that party. So it's just a psychological booster, that no, this party has numbers in theory, but in practice that will be determined by how people vote during the polls.
Professor, let's go to the election manifesto proper, right? There is messaging that will be told or will be given by the EFF leader, Julius Malema, today at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Now, how important is it to tailor-make a section of the election manifesto specifically for the people of KZN? I mean, we have talked about the intricacies of the politics in KZN. It's a little bit different to Gauteng or to the Western Cape or any other part of the country. So what is the likelihood of that message speaking specifically to this constituent?
Yeah, how you pitch your message to your audience is of paramount importance because it has to do with what you stand for. But with regard to the EFF, I expect them to pitch their manifesto along the lines of their ideological pillars, namely, black consciousness, or along the lines of, the views of Frantz Fanon, Pan-Africanism, in particular with regard to the issue of foreign nationals and the stance of the EFF of advocating for borders to be done away with. And also the manifesto will be informed by Marxism and Leninism because those are the tools of analysis that they are employing to diagnose the social order. So they will advocate for, expansionary fiscal policy. I mean, you heard about Julius Malema talking about the fact that he prefers different categories of grants, that people who have gone to school, who have sacrificed, who have studied, they must get more money, unlike other people maybe who've got matric. So you can see the leftist leaning, in terms of gravitating to the poorest of the poor. And of course, the issue of the land question is going to come out strongly there. The issue of gender-based violence also, it's one of our problems that we are sitting with in the country. The issue of corruption. So those are some of the issues that will arise out of the manifesto, but it will be inspired by, a leftist slant.
Now, the EFF does have a presence in eThekwini. They've enjoyed a measure of success, or have they? What are the key learnings that they're likely to draw from their experience in eThekwini, and how they're likely to use it, or how is Julius Malema likely to use it as a rallying point this afternoon in that election manifesto launch?
I think what inspires them is the fact that they've got a strong footprint there because they've done very well at local government level, and they are in coalitions in some of the municipalities. I know that there is a fallout between them and the IFP. So I think they draw a lot of inspiration from that. But also I think there might be no outright winner in KZN by the look of things. I know we're not talking about the ANC, but my reading of the situation is that the ANC will not bounce back to power. But that is linked to what they're talking about, because that will create a scope for a coalition arrangement to come into the picture. And the EFF, if it does garner votes, a sizable number of votes, then it will be a kingmaker. That's why they see KZN as a very strategic place. But also, KZN is the second largest province in the country. And that has to do with the GDP and issues of economic development. So it's a very strategic place for the EFF, especially with their hope of wanting to be at the helm of power.
Professor, a few months ago, KZN would potentially have been a four-horse race, if you will. But in the last few weeks, Umkhonto we Sizwe party has reared its head in that province and has become a factor. How strong a factor are they, and how much of a headache will they be for the EFF?
Look, in practice, Umkhonto we Sizwe has not been tested in terms of electoral politics. We have not gauged how they are able to pull numbers in favor of them. So I think we'll adopt the wait and see approach. But at the same time, based on the rallies that they've held, one gets the sense that there are people who are supporting them. and that compounds the problems of the ANC, but also it does pose a threat to the EFF because I think they are contesting the same base, basically, because the base of the EFF in the main is the black working class and Umkhonto weSizwe. If you look at how they package their message, it's along the lines of radical economic transformation. It is different from the packaging of the message of the EFF because it is very specific in terms of Marxism and Leninism, but also there are similarities in terms of what they believe in. So there is a tight competition between Umkhonto weSizwe and the EFF.
So let's come back to the psychology of politics and focus on the 10th of February, where the EFF is launching the election manifesto, the first of three political parties from what we have on our calendar in KZN. Is it important for them to be the first party? Can they draw any advantages from being the first to go and start spreading the news of their election manifesto ahead of this election?
Well, one of the things that the EFF takes pride in is that they set the scene for other political parties. They set the pace. You know, normally Julius Malema likes to crack a joke that whatever the EFF says, it goes. That other political parties normally get inspired by what the EFF says and they jump on the bandwagon. So that is important for them to basically articulate their manifesto. He was saying at some point that even the ruling party, I'm not sure how true is that, even the ruling party is waiting for the EFF to unveil its manifesto, then it will unveil its manifesto based on what the EFF says.
Well, what's pretty clear from this conversation, Professor Breakfast, is that the EFF have a strategy, and it's apparent for all to see. We can't say the same for the ANC. In fact, there's been much debate, and you and I have had numerous conversations around how the ANC chose to deal with the issue of the MK party vis-a-vis former President Jacob Zuma. Did they wait too long? Did they make the right decisions? In fact, the question is, do they have an evident strategy for the electorate?
No, I think, Hugo, you've hit the nail on the head on that score. That one of the strong points of the EFF is strategic theory. They are very good at maneuverability, and they are very good at outmaneuvering their political opponents. Even when they join forces with other political parties, you can see that there's always a strategy behind that. Even their relationship with Msholozi is not based on a friendship. The EFF, Julius Malema, is not a friend of former President Zuma. But based on their strategic intent, they are able to join forces because they've got one common enemy, which is President Ramaphosa. But what is holding back the ANC from maneuvering is basically the factional battles. So the strategic advantage of the EFF is that, yes, they do have problems. Look, where they're human beings, there are problems. Conflict is a natural phenomenon. But the conflicts of the EFF, I think maybe they can be managed behind closed doors. They are not palpable, unlike the ones of the ruling party, whereby every now and then they've got problems which are spilling out in the public domain.
Now, two of my colleagues who are at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at the moment, Ziyanda Ngobo and Karinda Jagmohan, have spoken to the constituent of the individuals that are in the stadium, and they're predominantly young people. EFF is a young party, and also evokes youth in its leadership. Now, how important is this a factor, right, in that the majority of people that are in that stadium, bar, as you say, it's psychological, we can't read too much into it, are young people? Is the EFF going to focus on a message for young people? But what about the elderly? The elderly constituent is also an important constituent.
Well, first of all, I mean, young people are future leaders. But also, young people constitute a huge chunk of eligible voters. The majority of eligible voters in this country, it's the youth. So also on top of that, the EFF, on matters of leadership, it is constituted by a youthful leadership. Julius Malema, yes, he is in his 40s and so on, but arguably those are still young people. You can put them under that category. So I'm sure that does inspire other, young people, in particular the black ones. And also, if you look at unemployment, which is sitting at, 32%, or it has gone up, unemployment, it affects in the main young people, poverty, the disparities between the haves and the have-nots. Young people are on the back foot. So that is a base that is extremely important, that would like to share a message that can lift up their spirits.
Professor, let's shift away a little bit from primary political issues to some social issues. And one of the issues that we face in the country is the issue of crime. We go to KZN, the number of political killings are too numerous to mention. But outside of the political killings, there's also the killing of AKA and his friend Tibzo a year to the date. And that crime has not been solved. No one in custody at the moment, if my memory serves me right. Is this one of the issues that Julius Malema is likely to address? Does the EFF have a plan for dealing with crime in South Africa?
I think the issue of crime does pose a threat to national security. Also, it does impact negatively on potential, arguably, investors.
No, I want to keep going. Can I give you a break? Sorry, I apologize for that. Please carry on, Professor.
Yeah, so I was saying that there is a nexus between national security and economic development. But I also think that the past is still with us, because I'm going to use this concept of state capture loosely, that state capture also affected the criminal justice system in terms of the security architecture of the country. And I don't think that we are out of the woods on that score. So that is something that needs to be addressed as a security threat to the country.
Professor,
and I think the yeah.
Professor Breakfast, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We are going to carry on this conversation in a moment. You watch a news feed, the PM edition, a preview to the EFF manifesto launch at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. We're coming back to you in a moment. That's a prelude to the election manifesto launch of the EFF, awaiting the arrival of their leader, Julius Malema, to address the thousands that are sitting and standing, in fact, at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. I'm in conversation at the moment with Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Professor Breakfast, thank you again for staying with us. Just before the break, we we were talking about the issues of crime and what the EFF can or cannot do as far as that is concerned. But it also allowed me to start with the conversation of young people and their needs. And one of the respondents to a question that Karinda Jagmana asked in the crowd today in the stadium is, what are you looking for? And this individual said, there are no jobs. Many of us are going to school qualified, but we cannot get absorbed. What are the likely solutions that the EFF will have for young people that have this challenge? NSFAS has obviously been a big issue, not paying the money that they're supposed to be paying to the students, the issues around, again, around getting money to students and failing the many that are going to universities and tertiary institutions at the moment.
Well, first of all, Hugo, I fully concur with you that the labor market as it stands has not been able to absorb young people on a large scale, given the fact that most of them are not regarded as having experience. So I'm sure the EFF will come up with anti-poverty strategies that will advocate for young people maybe to be exempted from having experience. But of course, I mean, they believe in a expansionary fiscal policy, like, for instance, the stuff that Malema was talking about earlier on, which is giving young people who might have gone to institutions of higher learning stipends, so that at least they can make ends meet and not bear the brunt of being on the margins of the economy. So, but lastly, can I just make this point?
Sure, please.
The inability of our economy to address the plight of young people has also created a scope for young people to withdraw from politics because they think that the old guards are letting them down. I think questions of unemployment amongst the youth are also driving young people away from politics, in my view, because, I mean, you want to know what's in it for you when you are going to vote. Now,
there is a saying that says, do not kick a man who is down on the ground. And I put this in the context of the State of the Nation address, in which the President spoke to issues around load shedding as an example, and immediately the next day load shedding has escalated. In fact, I think it's gone to very, very high stages as we speak. Is Julius Malema likely to take advantage of the SONA address and drive certain points home about the ANC's inability to deliver on various services for not just the people of the country, but more specifically for the people of KZN?
No, of course. I mean, I think he will take a swipe at the president for the contradiction that you spoke about, that 2 days ago we spoke about the fact that power outages are going to be a thing of the past, and today we are sitting on stage 6. And government has been talking about the rolling out of renewable energy, but that has not brought about a change for the better in terms of reducing the issue of power outages. So government has failed, I mean, to address the issue of power. I mean, it's one of the commitments that the president made. I mean, I remember in 2018, after he replaced Msholozi as a caretaker president, he spoke about the restructuring of Eskom. I mean, by now, I think they should have addressed the problems of Eskom, but the government has failed in that regard. So that gives the EFF a strategic advantage to take a swipe at him for dropping the ball in that. And given the fact that he was the deputy president and he was the person who was chairing the committee of Eskom that was looking into the issue of power outages, so he must also take full responsibility for the shortcomings of Eskom.
Professor Breakfast, we potentially have 3 months at least before the election, and maybe a month or two more before the election of 2024 is confirmed. But there are a number of issues that are bedeviling the people of KZN. Structural damage as a result of floods in the last few months that have not been addressed. many of those individuals that were displaced are still not accommodated. I think in the last few weeks we've talked to people that are still living in community halls, for instance, and have not been placed where they should be. So the issues of service delivery that are very, very sore for many of the people of KZN, particularly the elderly, or those that are living in certain houses or structures and are having to pay the bills, but can't afford to pay the bills because there are no jobs or they don't have sufficient income coming in. How important are these factors as a tool, if you will, for EFF in this address today? And finally, do you perceive a situation where the ANC government is able to turn those things around in the next few months, if they are important to the voters as we think they are?
Look, I mean, time is against the ANC. I think unfortunately, they've dropped the ball. I think there is a slow pace of service delivery there in KZN. That is quite palpable. But also, I mean, KZN has been affected, in my opinion, by climate change. There have been a lot of natural disasters there. And I think the municipalities have failed, in my view, to institutionalize disaster management in terms of having mitigating factors to respond to those natural disasters. But also, I think maybe even institutions of higher learning, I don't know about UKZN or the other university there. I think maybe they need to refine their curriculum design and development and subsume the issue of natural disasters, the issue of climate change and so on, in particular maybe in academic offerings like public administration, political science and so on. But it's something that is going to loom large in that province as well.
Professor Breakfast, always great to speak to you. Appreciate your time. And I hope in the next day or so we can do a review of that manifesto launch. Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast speaking to us ahead of the EFF manifesto launch at the Moses Mabhida Stadium.